Here are the answers for Lesson 9-5, Day 2. Question 1. This is a system of equations. We're asked to solve this with elimination method. For elimination method, we need to have opposite variable terms. And we already have that. The y terms are opposites. So add the equations together. X plus x is 2x. 7 plus 3 is 10. Therefore, x is equal to 5. Once you know one answer, use substitution to get the other. I'm going to substitute into the first equation, creating 5 plus y equals 7, and therefore y equals 2. As an ordered pair, 5, 2. Number 3, solve with the elimination method. Elimination method is when you want to have opposite variable terms. And we have that. The t terms are opposites. So add together. 3n plus 5n is 8n. 16 plus 8 is 24. Therefore, n is equal to 3. Then use substitution. I'm going to use the first equation, where the n is, fill in 3. And solve this equation for t. 3 times 3 is 9. Subtract 9 from both sides. 16 take away 9 makes 7. And so t is equal to negative 7 over 2. In alphabetical order, n is before t, so this is the order of the two numbers. Number 5. This time we have the same terms for m. So we can use subtraction to eliminate a variable. 12n subtract 5n is 7n. 18 subtract 4 is 14. Therefore, n is equal to 2. And then use substitution. I'm going to use the second equation. It looks easier. 5 times 2 is 10. Subtract 10 from both sides. N is negative 2. Oops, sorry, this is an M here, this is an M, and this is an M. Negative 2. M comes before N, so negative 2, 2. Number 7. The p terms are opposites, so add together. Negative 7q plus a 3q is negative 4q. 28 plus the negative 12 is 16. So q is negative 4. And I'll substitute into the first equation. This makes 6p plus 28 is equal to 28. So 6p must be 0, p must be 0. In the alphabet, the letters go M, N, O, P, Q. So p is before q. 0, negative 4. Number 9, the variable d is opposites, so we can add together. This is 7c is equal to 21, so c is equal to 3. And then substitute. I'm going to use the first equation. Two times 3 is 6. Subtract 6 from both sides. So d is negative 2. Alphabetically, c before d. Now, the next set of problems, solve with elimination. For elimination method, we want to have opposite variable terms. The a terms are not opposites. The b terms are not opposites. But using multiplication, we can create opposite terms. If we want the a terms to be opposites, then we'll multiply the second equation by -3. However, if we want the b terms to be opposites, we can multiply the first equation by 2. Either is fine. I'm going to multiply the first equation by 2. And I'll label on my transformation arrow what I'm doing. Rewrite the second equation with no changes. And observe that the b terms are now opposites. So you can add together. 7a is equal to 14. Therefore, a equals 2. Now use substitution to get the answer for b. You can use either of the original equations. I'm going to use the first equation. And the ordered pair is 2 comma -2. Now, number 13, we don't have opposite terms. When you look at the x terms, one of them is 4x and the other is 5x. Those are not opposites. When you look at the t terms, one is positive 5t and the other is negative 1t. Those are not opposites. But if we make the second equation have negative 5t, then it will be the opposite of 5t. So it's the second equation that we want to transform. Multiply by 5. Thirteen times 5 is 65. Rewrite the first equation with no changes. And now observe that the t terms are opposites. So we can add together, creating 29x is equal to 87, and then divide by 29 on both sides, getting x equals 3. Now use substitution to get the answer for t. I'm going to use the second equation. Therefore, t must be equal to 2. Alphabetically, t is before the letter x. Now, number 15. The p terms are not opposites, nor are the q terms. But if we transform the second equation so that instead of 2q, it's negative 4q, then that would be the opposite of what's in the first equation. So I'm going to multiply the second equation by -2. And it turns into this. And rewrite the first equation with no changes. Do you see why I chose to multiply by -2? Do you notice what happened? Now we can add together. This is -7p is equal to -28. Therefore, p is 4. You can substitute into either of the original equations. I'm going to use the first equation. Three times 4 is 12. Subtract 12 from both sides. So q is -2. P comes before q in the alphabet. Number 17. The c terms are not opposites, nor are the d terms. But if you could make this be -6c, then that would be the opposite of the 6c. So what do you have to times the top equation by to make -6c? You multiply by -3. And it makes -6c plus 21d is equal to -123. Rewrite the second equation with no changes. And now add together. And divide by 26 on both sides. D is equal to 5. Now substitute into either of the original equations. I'm going to use the first equation. Add 35 to both sides, making 76, and divide by 2. Alphabetically, C is before D. Now number 19. The B terms are not opposites, nor are the C terms. Now, what is the easier path to get opposite terms? Is it to make the B's be opposite or the C's be opposite? It would be to make the variable B be opposite, because it's possible to turn the 4B into a -12B. If instead you said, I want to make the letter C be opposite, then you'd need the least common multiple of 13 and 5, which is 65. And you'd have to turn the top equation into 65C and the bottom equation into -65C. And that would take more work. So I'm going to multiply the top equation by -3. And here's what you get. And rewrite the second equation with no changes. And now add together. So C equals -2. Then substitute into the first or second equation. I'm going to use the second equation. And alphabetically, B and then C. The next set of problems goes back to substitution method. So think about substitution method instead of elimination method. The first thing is to look to see if an equation has one of the variables already solved for. Yes, the first equation has the letter m alone. Take the expression that m is equal to and substitute it for the m in the second equation. So the second equation will transform using substitution into this. And now you solve this. This is 12n minus 2n is equal to 20. Combining like terms, 10n is equal to 20. So n is equal to 2. Now use substitution again into the first equation. So m equals 4 times 2, which is 8. Alphabetically, m before n. Number 8. We're using substitution method, remember. So you want to have one of the equations solved for one of the variables. And yes, that's already been done. The second equation has been solved for a. So take the expression that a is equal to and substitute it into the first equation. So the first equation will transform using substitution into this. And now solve this. Distributive property first. Subtract the 2b to move it to the left side where the 3b was. Add the 3 to move it to the right side where the negative 6 was. And you get b equals negative 3. Then substitute that value into the second equation. So the second equation is a equals negative 3 take away 1, which is negative 4. The answer is negative 4 comma negative 3. And number 12, solve with substitution. So neither equation already has the letter x. Neither equation already has a variable alone. Now you have four choices. This y, this x, this y, or this x. In your opinion, what is the easiest one to get alone? And I think it's going to be this x. What does the first equation transform into when you rearrange it and you get the letter x alone? You can add the x to the right side if you add the 9 to the left side where the 3y is located. So x equals 3y plus 9. Then substitute that value in place of the letter x in the second equation. So the second equation will transform using substitution into this. And now solve distributive property first. Combine like terms. Subtract the 45 from the 11. Y is equal to negative 2. Now that you know the answer for one letter, substitute it into an equation that will help you find x. And that is right here. So this equation transforms into x equals 3 parentheses negative 2 plus 9. This makes negative 6 plus 9, which is 3. In alphabetical order, x first, then y.